So, if you've been wondering if the rest of the world is on board with boycotting the US, I think this photo shows that Denmark is on board. This was actually sent in by one of our viewers, and it's very clear to me that Denmark is just as upset as Canadians are when it comes to the United States. So, to our viewer who sent this in, this Canadian stands with Denmark. Now, in today's video, I have another border stat report, this time coming out of Windsor, Ontario. I feel like it's good for me to do border reports, no matter where it is. We're all not in the same province, and some provinces might be crossing less or more than others. So if you're in the Windsor, Ontario area, hopefully this gives you an update. I also have another report basically stating that 7 out of 10 Canadians still plan to travel. I'm happy with that. I think everybody should be traveling, but just not to the United States. And last, the Orange McNugget decided that he was going to walk back a little bit on his comments on NATO. So I guess he technically tackled when it came to remarks about the NATO troops. But we'll get into that more later. And last, I have a few community comments I wanted to share as well. Today's backdrop comes from Tariffs, who took this photo of an icebreaker on the St. Lawrence River. I've never seen one in person myself, because we don't get very much ice in Vancouver. But this is pretty cool to see. Thanks very much, Tariffs, for sending this over to me. Now, before I get started, one of our viewers actually sent me this photo. He noticed that Maleta Coffee, I think that's how you pronounce it, previously used to roast their coffee in the United States. But when he bought a new package, it actually says roasted and packed in Canada now. Maybe they felt the pressure and needed to move their packaging to Canada. I actually wonder how many other products are doing this as well. So if anyone else has seen any other products that have moved their manufacturing or producing now in Canada, let me know. I'll be happy to show it. Now this next one, it's just a funny meme. I actually found this on Blue Sky and thought I would share it with everybody. I think we can all kind of relate. And before I get started, just an update on the petition. We're now at 8,766 signatures. Holy shit. This is dyslexia when I see the number but I say something else. Let me know in the comments if I'm screwing it up or not. Anyways, if you're new to my channel, this petition is to have our Canadian media reviewed for foreign investors. We all know about Post Media and the potential influences from a United States owner. So if you want our Canadian media reviewed, help to sign the petition below. It's already reached the required 500. And when I started showing it on my channel, it was only at 1,500. But I want to see if we can get this to 10,000 before February 3rd. We're almost there. And this video is going to be delayed by a day. So I'm going to guess that we're going to be in the 9,000s by the time you see this. So if you want to sign it or if you want to read it over, the link will be in the description below. Okay, let's get to the first report out of the Windsor-Detroit border.
Into the second presidential term of Donald Trump. And border traffic numbers show there's been a stark change in Canadian travel behavior with the United States. According to Statistics Canada, cumulative year-end data shows a 30.9% decline in Canadian land travel to the U.S. Laura Presley, an analyst with StatsCan, says that's a significant difference.
I will say that the decline that we're seeing in 2025 is notable because of its length and the depth of the decline. It hasn't been too often in our history where we've seen drops of that level for as long of a period as we are having.
One thing that really bothers me is you get the U.S. citizens or the U.S. tourism officials or businesses saying that they've gone through this stuff before. They've gone through natural disasters, they've gone through COVID, and they expect everything to bounce back. But with the COVID situation, that was something that both sides of the borders, they basically closed the border. And Canadians still wanted to go to the United States. But it's completely different now. The borders are wide open. And it's Canadians that are actually choosing not to go to the United States. But it really does still irk me when I hear business officials or tourism officials say that they'll bounce back and then everything will go back to normal. Maybe this is a question for the audience, but what do you guys think it is? Why do you think that these businesses are so arrogant in thinking that we'll just cave and come back? Let me know in the comments below. I'm actually curious to what everyone says.
The data is gathered by the Canada Border Services Agency, who count the number of Canadian automobiles that enter Canada, indicating a return trip from the U.S. In 2024, that yearly total was roughly 24.6 million. In 2025, the total fell to around 17 million, meaning that 7.6 million fewer Canadian vehicles visited the U.S. last year.
So you're looking at January, February, March, the entire year, we saw year-over-year decreases compared to 2024.
But those numbers are at a national level. Presley points out that at Windsor-Detroit land crossings, the decline hasn't been as dramatic. In 2024, around 3.8 million Canadian automobiles entered Canada locally. In 2025, that yearly total was around 3.4 million. Those 400,000 fewer vehicles represent a decrease of around 11%.
If you're looking at the Windsor level of decreases, it's not quite as severe.
Now, in my non-expert opinion, I feel like there's a lot more crossings between the Windsor Detroit that might not be for tourism or leisure. They might be people going down for work or visiting family or anything else that might not just be for a vacation. But if we look at the cross-country numbers, I'm not too worried.
Tal Chudner, CEO of the Windsor-Detroit Tunnel, says the tunnel's own numbers show even less of a change.
I consider our story a success story. We're only down around 4.5% on a year-to-year basis if we're comparing 2024 to 2025, which is less than anybody else.
Now I get it. This guy's running the tunnel like a business, so he has to be successful. If we're not crossing over to the US, then he's getting no revenue. It's kind of like the duty-free shops across the country that are either going out of business or barely staying alive. In order for them to survive, we have to go to the United States, and that's just not going to happen.
Chudner believes there are multiple reasons why the tunnel continues to be used by Canadians to visit the U.S. Firstly, there's the large number of cross-border workers in Windsor-Essex. There's also the convenience of proximity and the relatively low cost to use the tunnel. And maybe even Detroit sports team fandom is a factor.
Although there's been certainly an elbows up political campaign, sometimes sports has a stronger foothold than politics in a household.
Dawson Chen, CBC News, Windsor.
I'm not sure if I agree with that in regards to the sports. Everyone has a choice. I mean, I love my Vancouver Canucks, even though they suck right now. But even though I love my Vancouver Canucks and they're in last place, I wouldn't make an exception to go watch the game in LA or Las Vegas and stop my boycott. That's my choice. So I guess for anyone going down, they are making the choice to go. Which, if you ask me, they're probably still going to the States anyways. Now I want to move on to this next report. It basically states that 7 out of 10 Canadians are still going to be traveling this year, just not to the United States. Let's take a look.
Whether they're coming or going, Canadians are packing their bags and hitting the road.
I will be traveling at least twice a month, approximately.
This is similar to what Alliance Global Assistance Canada found in their annual Vacation Confidence Index.
7 in 10 Canadians say that they're confident to take a vacation this year, which is actually up 9 points from 2025.
The intent to travel holds true across most age demographics. Over 70% of Gen Z, Millennials, and Gen X are planning trips. Travel among baby boomers, however, is down, thought to be because snowbirds are avoiding travel to the United States, where interest is down from 20% in 2025 to just 12% this year.
As has been well reported, there's been quite a bit of a decline in travel to the United States this year, and it's actually continuing, if not getting stronger, as we start this year.
I'm actually shocked to hear CTV say this, because they've been always promoting that snowbirds are still going down. They brought on the CEO from the Snowbird Association, saying that all of his members are still going. But to hear that it's gone from 20% to 12% interest, that's actually a great thing to hear. But I still firmly believe that we're going to see lower numbers this year. Why? Because last year we had a whole bunch of people that pre-booked, booked in 2024, or booked before the Orange McNugget went into the office. And it was just too much for them to give up. So I don't think we're going to have as many of those bookings this year, which in turn should drop the numbers even more.
So with Canadians showing such an interest in traveling this year, where are they going?
Europe in particular is very, very popular right now, and it's popular for cruisers.
Getting to Europe is easier than ever. A number of direct flights from Halifax have opened that continent for vacationers.
There are currently 56 nonstop flights offered out of Halifax to destinations all across the globe. We're currently seeing a lot of our sun destinations kick off for the season.
I love travel because travel is everything. You get new experiences, meet new people, do different things, you get to have adventures.
Now, I'm going to stop here and vent a little bit. I know I've said this in previous videos, but I still see comments where people are saying that they're going to let their passport expire because they're never going to go to the United States again. I still continue to say that's a big mistake. Why? Well, let me tell you a story. I used to only fly to California, Las Vegas, and Hawaii. Those were my 3 destinations that I used to always go to. It wasn't until my first stint away, where I actually had to travel farther, whether it was Asia or Europe for work, that I actually realized there's a lot more out there than just whatever the United States have to offer. Now, I was fortunate enough to piggyback a vacation off my work trips, but being able to experience new cultures, new cities, new regions around the world has actually grown me as a person. So I do hope that those that are thinking about letting their passports expire, utilize your passport, because it is one of the strongest ones in the world.
And Canadians appear to be particularly adventurous this year, and the world awaits. Well, Maria, another interesting finding from the study shows that Canadians not only like to travel, but 70% say traveling is important for their well-being.
I can definitely see that. Thank you, Jonathan.
And I can definitely agree with that. Sometimes we all need time just to unplug, and a vacation is really good for that. But my takeaway from this report is that Canadians are still traveling. We're just not going to the United States. And the good thing about this? Millions of Canadians are still traveling, and they're still spending money in other countries that actually respect us. Now, speaking of someone who has no respect for anything, the Tangerine Taco sounds like he's walking back on a statement where he says the NATO allies soldiers didn't do anything in the Afghan war. Let's take a look.
Also tonight, an about-face from President Trump after igniting a firestorm over the service and sacrifice of non-U.S. troops in Afghanistan. In a social media post, Trump today acknowledged the 457 British soldiers killed and wounded in action in Afghanistan, calling them the greatest of all warriors.
Yeah, the damage is already done. You know what's ironic, though? If he actually posted this without actually stating what he did in the past, it would actually look good. But we can't unsee what we saw, and we saw him disrespect the UK, Canadian, and NATO soldiers that died. That's something I'm not going to forget.
CBS's Haley Ott in London has the latest.
This is Britain's National War Memorial, honoring those killed in conflicts like Afghanistan. Many across NATO countries were furious after they felt President Trump insulted their soldiers' sacrifices, and his apparent about-face may not be enough to repair the harm.
Will they be there if we haven't needed them?
President Trump shocked America's NATO partners in an interview with Fox this week. Britain and other NATO allied countries lost hundreds of service members in the war in Afghanistan, and the president's comments left them reeling.
I consider President Trump's remarks to be insulting and frankly appalling.
But is anyone surprised, though? When you're dealing with a narcissistic child, this is what we're going to get. I mean, he flips more than pancakes do. And we have to deal with this guy when it comes to the Kuzma negotiations or any other trade deal. But what I know is that even after his Truth Social post where he backpedaled, the veterans are not going to forget.
In the UK, lawmakers across the political spectrum were horrified.
There is too much careless talk from President Trump.
How dare this man who's never seen any action, who somehow or other, when there was a draft for everybody else in the United States, managed to avoid it, and yet now is commander-in-chief and knows nothing.
Even Prince Harry, an Afghanistan veteran himself, spoke out. Mothers and fathers buried sons and daughters, Harry said. Children were left without a parent. Families are left carrying the cost. One of those families, Ben Parkinson's. He's among the most wounded veterans to survive the Afghan war. His mother was furious at President Trump.
It's disgraceful. It's disrespectful. These are the rantings of a child, and it's not acceptable in a supposed leader of the free world.
Keir Starmer spoke directly with President Trump today about the contributions of British forces in Afghanistan. But the damage may already be done, Scott, with many of America's closest partners worried the U.S. may no longer be a reliable ally.
They're definitely not a reliable ally anymore. We all heard what we heard, and we're not going to forget that. I've had many people reach out to me during my last video when I talked about the veterans, and many of them were appalled. Some of them veterans themselves, or family members of veterans. So I don't think anyone should ever forget what he actually said. But we should also remember, too, that it's not just this one guy. There are going to be millions of people who also believe it as well. Now, I want to take this time to acknowledge some of the comments that actually stood out to me in my videos. The first one comes from Anders Soder. Swede here. Sweden had about 500 troops in Afghanistan for almost 20 years. At the time, Sweden was not part of NATO. There were at least 5 deaths. These troops were 1/6 of Sweden's active army. The troops were involved in intelligence and patrol activities. I wanted to acknowledge Sweden as well as their troops that did participate. If President Bonespurs won't, then I will acknowledge them. This next one comes from Lance. I watched the Las Vegas CEO plea when it was first posted. I commented, "You don't miss Canadians. You miss the money. Discounts won't bring us back." Yes, I do think less of people traveling to the US for vacations. Not that it matters to them. I have a hard time understanding how Canadians can travel there after the disrespect shown to us, our armed forces, and murdering their own citizens. I am also severing my interest in retirement investing in US companies. Taco Man has already caused a drop in 50% in foreign investments in the 12 months. When I first saw the Vegas CEO plea, I actually kind of felt a little bit sorry for him. But then when one of our Blue Sky viewers showed me a video of him ushering the president in, I lost all sympathy. And that guy can go to hell. But on the next part, where he says he thinks less of people traveling to the US for vacations, I hate to say it, but I agree as well. It pains me and frustrates the hell out of me when I see people still going to the United States, especially with what's going on right now. I don't understand what goes on in the head of these people, but all I can think of is that maybe they think that it doesn't affect them, or that them going over doesn't matter, or they just simply don't care. I just saw a social media post of one of my friends, and he took it from Las Vegas, right on the strip. I looked at it and I shook my head. But at the same time as well, I think there's also a reason why I'm no longer close to him. And this has been going on for years. I actually found a radio clip on this topic, and I'm actually thinking about making a video about it. The title of the podcast is actually, Abacus Data says Canadians think less of fellow Canadians who still travel to the US. So if you want me to do a review on this, let me know in the comments below. That's all I have for today. But before I end it, I do want to thank everyone for thinking about my own well-being. I know I said in my previous video that I'm starting to get burnt out. And in a sense I am, but I think it's burnt out on certain topics. When it comes to the boycott, travel, and tourism, I have absolutely no problems doing those, and I actually like doing it. But when it starts to trend into what the taco did, what he didn't do, what he's threatening, and I think when he insulted our Canadian soldiers as well as NATO allies, I don't know why, but that really pissed me off. But regardless of that, I appreciate everyone's concern for my well-being. But I think I'm going to be okay. And I do enjoy sharing these reports with everyone and kind of saying how it really should be. Oh, and one more thing before I close off this video. This has been a 100% script-free video for the first time ever on the GTL channel. So hopefully it still sounds okay. And I'm feeling a little bit more freer to say what I want. So thanks everyone if you're still watching up to this point. If you found any value in anything I said today, help my channel out by hitting the like and subscribe button below. And share this video with your friends. Alright everyone, I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day.